education, home ownership, employment and wealth, healthcare. Can you admit that America is systemically and structurally a racist country?
I think culture has a lot to do with it, right? But it's more of, if you look at that, how do you fix it?
Because even when you say all men are created equal, no, they weren't, because we were labeled 3/5 of a human. Black people were.
Right, and we made that wrong right. And we've got some more rights we have to do. But so
systemically and structurally, do you think America is racist? Not the people, not everybody in America.
I don't think America's racist. I think we have racism in America, and I think we have cultural issues. But let me explain where I am. So first of all, I grew up, and you might have, I don't know if Berkeley County was like this, in a town of 2,500 two stoplights. We were the only Indian family in that small southern town. We weren't white enough to be white. We weren't black enough to be black. They didn't know who we were, what we were, or why we were there. In that rural town, we didn't know what we didn't have. And so people just survived. I now have a education foundation in South Carolina where we do after-school programs in all rural challenged areas, because you've got to give extra support to those areas that don't have. But when I came into South Carolina as governor, we had thousands of people on welfare. A lot of that was generational. From one generation to the next, they just lived on welfare. It's all they knew. I wanted to change that. So what I did is I took the people on welfare and I matched them up with businesses. And I told the businesses, if you will take this person and train them, I will pay for them for X number of weeks. And then you decide if you want to hire them. We moved 35,000 people from welfare to work. We had family parties because for the first time, kids saw their parents working. It's not that those people didn't want a job. They didn't know where to get the training. You got to do the extra stuff to lift them up. Then I went into the prison systems. I wanted to know how people got in, what happened when they were there, and how they got out. And I went into those prisons and talked to the inmates. And I completely reformed the system to where we gave them financial planning, family planning, computer skills, but we put equipment behind the fence and we taught them a skill. Now when someone leaves the fence, they have a job to go to the next day. We have the lowest recidivism rate in the country. The goal is not what the circumstances are. How do you pull people out of those circumstances and lift them up?
Well, you can't hear what you don't reveal. So you have to acknowledge the history of this country.
You have to acknowledge that these things are happening, and how are you going to fix it?
Absolutely. Now, I wonder, why can't politicians, Democrat and Republican, because we've heard you say America's never been a racist country. We've heard the vice president say that before. We've heard OG Jim Clyburn say that before. We've heard Tim Scott say that before. Why can't Democrats and Republicans just be honest and tell people, hey, we can't have honest conversations about racism in this country because it's not a good electoral strategy?
I mean, that's not why I do it.
That's why.
No.
That's why everybody does it.
I have talked about racism as it affected me and how we need to get past it. I mean,
you can't talk about it and say America's never been a racist. You can't say America's never been a racist country, but then talk about the racism you've experienced.
There is racism in our country. Mm-hmm. I don't think that our country was founded to be racist. I don't. I think that it was meant to be this amazing experiment to see if we could have freedom and democracy in a way that all men are created equal.
But if you didn't look at all men,
we are not there yet.
But if you didn't look at all men as equal from the beginning, then the ideology is flawed.
But why do you want kids to hear that they live in a racist country? Why can't you tell kids, look, we're not perfect and we have some more things to fix? I don't want any child to think like that. I don't want any child to believe that they're disadvantaged from the second they're born. I didn't want to feel that.
I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think if you tell somebody,
it is, though.
I think if you tell somebody it's cold outside, that just makes them put on a coat.
No, it makes them know what it's going to feel like before they even get outside. I don't want kids to feel that. I want them to get outside with confidence and strength and know that they can be anything. We have to do that.
But they got to know the truth too. They have to know the truth. Like I have two black sons, and they have to understand what they're facing when they go out to this world. It's not going to be the same as, let's say, my neighbor or a classmate. It's going to be the same. And the same thing with you. And same thing with you. If you have brothers, and let's say your brothers wore the same thing that your dad wore, they weren't going to have the same lifestyle, and they were going to be looked at differently than your other classmates.
Look,
it's the truth.
There was a We Miss Bamberg pageant that everybody would put their children in. It was the big thing in Bamberg. You always put your kids in. So my mom decided to put me and my sister in this pageant. And I was disqualified because they had a black queen and they had a white queen. And they said they didn't know where to put me because if I was in the black category, the blacks would be mad. If I was in the white category, the whites would be mad. So they gave me a beach ball and sent me on my way.
A beach ball?
Yeah, I know. That's all I got, right? Only after my mom said, will you at least let her sing her song? You're never going to believe it. My song was, this land is your land, this land is my land. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. Listen, did my parents sit down and say to us what happened here was wrong? Yes. But did they say, this is the way the country is? No. My mom said, you get up, you show that we're going to make it better tomorrow. It's my mentality that I want everybody to know we all have a job to do, and that's to fix this country. And we never stop doing it. We have racism, and it's terrible. I've felt it. Y'all felt it. A lot of people have felt it. But are we not going to fight every day to make sure that we stomp it out wherever we see it? Absolutely. But I don't want kids being raised to think that they're never going to get past it. I want them to think that they can actually be the ones that help us get past it.
But they have to know what it is. You can't take it out of classrooms. You can't take it out of curriculum. You can't act like it doesn't exist.
They got to know what they're fighting for.
Yeah, I have to heal it in order. You have to reveal it in order to heal it.
But didn't we learn in South Carolina? We learned about it. We learned about it in history classes. You should always talk about it in history classes. You don't know how to keep bad things from happening if you don't look at the past and say, okay, how do we go for it? Those are the lessons that we have to learn. I think it's fine to talk about it. I have no issues with that. But don't judge people who are trying to do right now. And don't live in the past. Let's look forward and say, what do we want to look like?
So why did you take the Confederate flag down? Was it because it was a symbolism of racism or hate?